Rainy night in the Enchanted Forest ASMR sleep story. The rain had started hours ago, soft at first, like the gentle whisper of someone remembering a dream. But now, it drummed steadily against the mossy rooftop of the tiny woodland cottage, each drop a reminder of how alone Elara truly was. She stood in the doorway, one hand clutching a threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders. In the clearing before her, the dark trees swayed and shimmered with rain, their tall bodies bending under the weight of the wind. The forest never slept, not truly. And tonight, it felt awake in a different way. Watching. But Elara's mind wasn't on the trees. Her eyes were fixed on the small, empty patch of earth near the steps, where just this morning, the old wooden cradle had sat. The one her mother had rocked her in. The one Elara had hidden for years, even though she had no child of her own. It had been the last thing her mother ever touched before the sickness took her. And now, it was gone. Taken. Not by wind. Not by animals. By something else. A sharp pang twisted in her chest. That cradle had been all she had left of the woman who once sang lullabies into her hair and traced dreams across her forehead in soft candlelight. Now, there was nothing. Nothing but the rain. Elara had never belonged to the village, not truly. Not since her father vanished in the woods when she was just a girl. They'd whispered that he'd been taken, swallowed by the forest for some debt or darkness they dared not name aloud. And when her mother wasted away, grief-stricken and pale, the villagers stopped knocking. Stopped offering scraps. Stopped meeting her eyes. So, she lived alone at the forest's edge, surviving on foraged roots and herbs, occasionally trading bundles of dried sage or healing salves for cloth or salt. Her hands were always stained with earth, and her eyes held the quiet ache of someone who had seen too much loss and learned to carry it without sound. But she wasn't truly alone. There was Kale. Kale had been her only friend since they were children, an orphan boy raised by his grandmother, one of the last herbalists in the region. While the other children mocked her for being strange, Kale sat beside her in the meadows and helped her name the clouds. He had a soft laugh and a steadiness that made Elara feel, if only for a while, like she wasn't invisible. Now, Kale was tall and broad-shouldered, with hands rough from splitting firewood and a kindness that hadn't faded. He visited whenever he could, bringing dried apples or new books he thought she'd like. He never asked too many questions, but he knew her silences and honored them like sacred things. That night, he found her still standing in the doorway. "Elara," he said gently, stepping through the rain. "You're soaked. Come inside." She didn't answer right away. Just stared at the empty patch of earth. "It's gone," she said finally. He followed her gaze, brow furrowing. "The cradle?" She nodded. I didn't move it. I wouldn't. It's been there for years." Kale stepped forward, his boots squelching softly in the mud. He examined the ground, eyes narrowing. "No tracks," he muttered. "Nothing but rain." "That's not possible," she whispered. "Something took it. I felt it. I heard something last night. Like breathing, right outside the wall." He looked at her, then really looked. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled slightly where they clutched the shawl. "You should rest," he said gently. "Let me stay here tonight. Just in case." She didn't argue. That night, the fire crackled softly in the hearth, its glow painting the walls in amber light. Kale had taken the old chair by the door, blanket around his shoulders, while Elara lay curled on the cot, eyes flickering between the flames and the window. But sleep did not come easily. Something felt wrong. It wasn't the wind or the rain. It was the stillness. As though the forest itself were holding its breath. Then, a sound. A soft tapping. Like fingernails on glass. Elara sat up, heart pounding. Her eyes darted to the window. Nothing. But then she saw it, on the inside of the windowpane. A single, wet handprint. Too high to be hers. Too long in the fingers. The shape distorted, unnatural. She gasped. Kale was on his feet instantly. What is it? She pointed. The window was fogged over now. The handprint, gone. I saw it, she whispered. There was a hand. On the inside. Kale didn't question her. He moved to the door and locked it, then pushed the chair against it. The fire dimmed slightly, as though something unseen had inhaled all the warmth from the room. Elara shivered. Sometime near dawn, as the rain softened to a misty drizzle, Elara awoke to silence. Kale was still asleep, his head resting against the door. But something pulled her up. A whisper, faint and distant, echoing inside her mind. Elara. She rose, barefoot, and padded to the window. The forest stood silent, veiled in silver mist. Then, movement. A shape. Tall, gaunt, with limbs too long and joints bending the wrong way. Its skin shimmered like tree bark soaked in starlight. It stood at the edge of the clearing. Watching. It lifted one hand slowly, 5 impossibly long fingers, and waved. Not threateningly. Not mockingly. Beckoning. Then it vanished into the mist. Elara took a step back, breath shallow. And on the windowsill below her, where no one had been, sat the cradle. Wet. Empty. Rocking gently. By morning, the cradle was gone again. Only a small tuft of moss and a feather-like trail of dew remained on the sill, as though it had never been there at all. Kale paced the room in silence, jaw clenched. Elara just sat, staring into the smoldering embers of last night's fire, clutching a blanket to her chest like it might anchor her to something real. I didn't imagine it, she said quietly. I know. Kale, there was something in the woods. It saw me. He turned to her, eyes shadowed. I believe you. That's why I went to get help. Elara looked up. Help? Kale nodded toward the woods behind the cottage, where the mist hung low and thick over the roots. She's waiting, he said. The Babalin. They followed a narrow trail through the fog-drenched forest, their boots brushing past ferns slick with dew. The deeper they walked, the quieter everything became, no birdsong, no wind, just the distant echo of water trickling through unseen rocks. After nearly an hour, they came to a clearing encircled by tall banyan trees, their roots coiled like serpents above the soil. At the center sat an old woman wrapped in crimson cloth, her hair long and white as bone, her eyes a pale silver that shimmered when the light hit them just right. Elara, the woman said before either of them could speak. You've finally come. Elara's heart skipped. Do I know you? I knew your mother. And your Lola, before her. Kale bowed his head slightly. This is Apong Milia. She's a Babalin, one of the last. Elara stepped forward slowly, curiosity and unease swirling in her chest. I've had dreams of you, child, Apong Milia said. Of fire and salt, of bones washed ashore, and of the mutya. She reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a small, luminous object. It looked like a shell, smooth, pearlescent, and glowing faintly with an inner light. Symbols shimmered across its surface, dancing like reflections on water. This, she said, belonged to your family. Passed from blood to blood, ever since the curse began. Elara's fingers brushed the edge of the object. A strange warmth pulsed from it into her skin, like a heartbeat. She pulled back. What curse? She asked. Milia's face grew solemn. Long ago, your ancestors made a pact with an aswang. A creature of hunger and shadow. They begged it to spare the child of a dying village, your great-great-grandmother, during the Great Famine. It agreed, for a price. Elara's mouth went dry. What kind of price? Each generation, the woman said, must offer one thing the forest deems precious. Not gold. Not silver. But something with soul, something loved. Elara felt a chill sweep over her. The cradle, she whispered. It took the cradle. Mutya nodded. It was only the beginning. The aswang has awakened again, and it remembers your blood. It watches from the veil, and it waits to claim its due. Elara took a shaky step back. No. That's not fair. My family I didn't make any deal. Mutya held her gaze. Yet the blood remembers. And the forest does not forget. They sat in silence for a long while as the sky darkened with gathering clouds. Thunder rumbled somewhere deep in the valley. Kale placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. We can break the curse, right? There has to be a way. There is, Mutya said. But it will not be easy. The mutya must be claimed, not just touched, but bonded. It will awaken your gifts, but it will also mark you. The aswang will know you. It will follow. Elara shook her head. I don't want this. I don't want magic or curses or blood pacts. You don't have a choice anymore, Anik, Mutya said softly. The forest chose you the moment you were born under that blood moon. You are the key to this. The mutya pulsed once more in Milya's hand, its light glowing brighter as though hearing Elara's name. Take it, the old woman said. Let it know your voice. Elara hesitated, then reached out. As her fingers wrapped around the smooth shell, a jolt of warmth shot up her arm. Images flashed behind her eyes, shadows crawling through mist, an ancient tree with eyes that blinked, a child's lullaby twisted into a dirge. She gasped and nearly dropped it, but Mutya steadied her. Breathe, she said. You saw fragments. The mutya is showing you pieces of what was. And what may come. That night, Elara sat alone near the hearth, the mutya glowing faintly in her palm. She could feel it now. A pulling inside her chest. A thread linking her to something vast and unseen, like roots reaching beneath the earth. The rain had returned, gentle at first, but the wind was rising again. The forest whispered things she couldn't understand. I don't want to be part of this, she murmured aloud. But deep down, something inside her stirred. Not fear. Not yet. Something older. Something ready. She woke sometime after midnight to the sound of knocking. Not at the door. But on the roof. Tap. 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 Slow. Rhythmic. Like long nails scraping wet wood. She sat up, breath caught in her throat. The fire had gone out. The mutya in her hand flickered, then glowed brighter. Then, a shadow passed the window. She crept to it slowly and peeked through the glass. What she saw froze her blood. A creature, crouched near the tree line. Its spine arched backward like a broken animal. Its eyes glowed faintly green in the dark. Black tongue flicking in and out, tasting the air. Skin stretched thin over a too hollow frame. It was chewing something. Elara squinted. It was a doll. Her old cloth doll from childhood, mud-stained, waterlogged, its yarn hair matted. The creature turned, as if sensing her gaze. And smiled. Its teeth were too many. Elara couldn't sleep anymore. Not since the creature in the woods smiled at her, wearing her childhood doll like a badge. It haunted her waking thoughts, that grin. The way its eyes gleamed with knowing. Not hunger, exactly. But recognition. As though it had always been watching. She sat by the fire the next morning, the mutya warm in her hands. Kale was asleep, curled up with his back against the wall, his sword, dull but dependable, resting near his side. Elara stared into the embers, her thoughts tangled like vines in moonlight. I should have been told, she whispered. They all knew. My mother, my grandmother, she remembered nights spent by the hearth as a child, her mother brushing her hair, humming songs that seemed to carry the ache of centuries. Now she wondered, were those lullabies meant to soothe her, or protect her? And if her family had made a pact with something monstrous, Had they tried to hide it, or keep her from becoming part of it? The mutya pulsed again, faintly. As if listening. Breathing. She closed her fist around it. I didn't ask for any of this. Later that day, she wandered alone into the misty edge of the forest. The rain had eased to a gentle drizzle, the leaves above catching droplets like tiny drums. The silence here was different. Not peaceful, expectant. As she stepped over a fallen branch, her foot grazed something smooth. A trail of white stones, glimmering faintly under the canopy. She followed. It led to a small clearing, where the trees bowed inward, forming a natural dome. There, floating just inches above a pool of water, was a spirit. Its form shimmered like heat in the air, humanoid but weightless. Its face was blurred, like mist on glass, but its presence was unmistakable, gentle, yet mournful. Elara froze. The spirit slowly extended a hand. Then spoke, not with lips, but directly into her mind. The one you trust has lied. She staggered back, heart hammering. What do you mean? Kale? The spirit didn't answer. It only pointed toward the trees. Elara turned, but there was nothing there. When she looked back, the spirit was gone. Only the pool remained, rippling slightly despite the still air. That night, the firelight flickered more wildly than usual, even though the wood was dry. The shadows on the walls danced too fast, too sharp. Elara sat cross-legged, staring at Kale. He stirred the stew, humming softly. Too softly. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked suddenly. Kale looked up. Tell you what? My family. The curse. The mutya. You knew. You led me straight to Apongmilia. He went still. I didn't know everything, he said finally. Not at first. But you knew something, she whispered. I knew your mother feared something. I knew your name was spoken among the Babalans when we were still children. But I didn't want it to be true. I didn't want you to be pulled into it. And yet, you brought me into it. He looked at her then, eyes stormy. I was trying to protect you, Elara. But you're not just anyone. You never were. Even the forest knew your name. She stood, fists clenched. Don't pretend this was about protection. You had years to tell me. But you waited until things got dangerous. Kale rose too, voice quiet but steady. Because I was scared. Scared you'd hate me. Scared you'd run. Scared I'd lose you the same way your mother lost everything. His words hung in the air like smoke. I already lost everything, she said. She left the cottage that night without a word, the mutya hidden beneath her cloak. The moon was high, casting pale light across the forest. Every branch seemed like an arm reaching, every rustle a whisper just out of earshot. As she crossed a narrow creek, the air shifted. The sound of hooves, soft, then loud. Elara turned just in time to see something galloping between the trees. It looked like a horse, but wrong. Too thin. Its legs bending the wrong way. No eyes. No mouth. It passed without looking at her, but the cold it carried seeped into her bones. Another creature. Another sign. She found herself at the roots of a massive bolete tree, its gnarled limbs twisted in haunting shapes. This tree had been in her dreams before, always surrounded by whispers. Now, the whispers were real. She knelt beside it, one hand pressed to the trunk. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Her breath fogged in the air. Not from cold, but from presence. You are never alone, came a voice from the tree. It wasn't her mother's voice. But it was familiar. The bark beneath her hand pulsed, and she felt something shift in the mutya. A sudden gust blew through the trees, and with it came a smell, coppery and sharp. Elara rose slowly, heart pounding. Then she saw it. Not the full aswang. Just the pieces. A tuft of black fur caught on a branch. A glistening trail of red winding across the moss. And a shadow that moved on its own, crawling along the ground like spilled ink, circling her. She stepped back, mutya in one hand, the other reaching for her dagger. The shadow hissed and vanished. Elara stood alone, heart racing, the weight of the mutya burning in her palm. Back at the cottage, Kale was waiting. His eyes were rimmed with sleepless worry. "You saw something," he said softly. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at him, really looked. There was pain in his eyes. Regret. But not deceit. Still, the doubt had been planted. The spirit's warning. The silence. The way he had hesitated. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said. Kale didn't flinch. "Then don't." "But I'm staying. With you. No matter what comes." That night, Elara dreamed again. She stood in the clearing under the blood moon. The trees bled sap like tears. The air buzzed with the cries of the lost. And the cradle was there. Rocking. But this time, it wasn't empty. Inside lay a bundle wrapped in black cloth. She reached toward it, slowly, trembling. The cloth fell away. And what lay beneath looked like her. Not as she was now. But as a child. Eyes wide open. Mouth sewn shut. She woke with a scream caught in her throat, the mutya glowing fiercely in her palm. And outside the cottage, something howled. Close. Too close. The wind had changed. The rain no longer came in soft, sleepy sheets, it now hissed through the trees, carried on cold gusts that made the leaves shiver like frightened children. Elara stood at the edge of the cottage porch, the mutya cradled in both hands. Its light was dimmer today, flickering like a candle near death. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Not just in her bones, but in the air. The forest was holding its breath. And the silence? It wasn't peace. It was waiting. Apong Milya had returned briefly at dawn, her feet bare and her robe soaked from the rain. She didn't come inside. Just stood at the tree line, her eyes distant and heavy. "They're gathering," she said, voice low. Elara must decide soon. Then she turned and vanished into the mist before Elara could even step forward. Kale busied himself with sharpening his blade, though they both knew it wouldn't be enough against what was coming. Steel might nick an aswang, but it couldn't banish one. It couldn't unravel curses passed down through generations. "You've barely slept," he said, not looking up. "I can't," Elara replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see things. The child. The tree. The sewn mouth." She didn't mention the latest part of the dream, that this time, the child had spoken, even without lips that moved. "You're not strong enough," it had whispered. "They'll all die because of you." Later that day, she wandered alone into the clearing behind the cottage, the one where the spirit had warned her, where the stones had first glowed. Now, the stones were cracked. And there were new symbols etched into the dirt, ones she hadn't carved. Spirals. Eyes. A hand pierced by a fong. She knelt beside them, fingers trembling. "What does it mean?" she whispered. The forest didn't answer. But something moved in the shadows. She turned quickly, nothing. Yet a tree branch, thick and solid, had curled ever so slightly in her direction. As if listening. Back in the cottage, tension simmered like the stew over the fire. Kale watched her pace, his fingers drumming the hilt of his blade. "You're pulling away again," he said quietly. "I'm trying to focus," she snapped. "Is that what you call it?" She stopped. "I don't have the luxury of being soft right now, Kale." "Soft?" "Elara, this isn't about strength. You can't face this alone. Whatever you think you have to become, don't let it tear you away from the people who care." Her gaze dropped. She wanted to believe him. She did. But the dreams. The mutya. The spirit's warning. The truth she had begun to suspect. What if I'm not meant to stop the curse, she said. He frowned. What if I am the curse? The mutya had grown warmer lately. Sometimes, when she held it too long, her fingertips tingled as though they were falling asleep. Other times, it whispered to her, fragments of words, echoing from inside her chest instead of her ears. Choose. Remember. Burn. And once, in a dream, she had seen herself reflected in a still pond. But her eyes had not been her own. They were glowing green. Slit-pupilled. Hungry. That night, the forest erupted. Not in screams. In song. A low, undulating hum rolled through the trees, dozens of voices humming the same note, in perfect, unnatural harmony. Kale jolted upright, grabbing his blade. Elara already stood at the window. Outside, shadows moved. Dozens. No faces. Just figures, tall and bent, weaving through the mist like a slow tide of dread. The aswangs were not attacking. Not yet. They were waiting. Performing a ritual. Calling something bigger. Kale began packing his things, but Elara didn't move. Elara, he said sharply. We need to leave. Now. I can't, she said. What do you mean, you can't? She turned to him, eyes wide with terror and resolve. This isn't about running anymore. They're not just after me. He looked at her, confused. What are you saying? I think I'm the gate, Kale. He went pale. The what? I've felt it since the mutya chose me. Every time it glows, every time I dream, I'm pulling them here. Or they're pulling through me. Kale backed away slightly, hand still on his weapon, not in threat, but in fear. Elara, she closed her eyes, the mutya pulsing like a heartbeat in her palm. I think my blood is what lets them in. After a long silence, he said, then we find a way to close it. To seal you off. We fight. Her eyes met his. What if sealing me off means killing me? He didn't answer. Because neither of them knew. The wind grew louder outside. The humming intensified. The pressure in the air was enough to make the walls groan. And in the hearth, the flames turned blue. Elara stared into them. Saw a face. Not hers. But hers. The girl from the dreams. This time, she was older. Closer. And she was smiling. Blood dripped from the corners of her sewn mouth. That night, Elara stood in the clearing. Alone. She had left Kale behind, locking the cottage with charms Milya had taught her. He would be safe, at least for now. She stepped into the circle of broken stones. The mutya flared, and the world breathed. A voice echoed from the dark. Are you ready? She turned. There stood Milya, cloaked in mist. Ready? Elara asked, voice hoarse. To die? To lose everything? To choose, Milya said. The enemy grows stronger. You've seen it. Elara nodded slowly. I can feel them inside me. Then you must decide, Milya said. Will you let them take you, or will you burn them out? Lightning split the sky behind the trees, and the humming stopped. The silence that followed was worse than sound. Like the forest had fallen still for a kill. And from the shadows, eyes began to open. Dozens. Hundreds. Watching. Waiting. The blood moon rose early. Huge and swollen in the sky, its eerie light turned the forest red, like every tree, every leaf, every stone had been dipped in memory and grief. Elara stood at the center of the broken circle, her boots soaked from the damp earth. The mutya burned cold in her hand. Across from her, Milya remained still, eyes closed, lips whispering words only the forest seemed to understand. The wind didn't move her cloak. But something else did. A presence. Elara felt at the moment the last syllable escaped the old woman's lips. Like the ground beneath her no longer belonged to the world of the living. "They're coming," Mutya said. Elara nodded. "I know." But when she looked closer, truly looked, something about Mutya's face had changed. Her eyes were still the same dark pools. But behind them, something watched. The trees around them began to twist, bark creaking, branches pulling upward like antlers. The air was thick with whispers, some in languages she didn't know. Others in voices she recognized. Her mother's. Her father's. Even herself, calling out from when she was a child. "Elara, don't look at her. Don't trust her." Mutya's eyes opened slowly. Too slowly. "Do you hear them?" she asked gently. "Yes. They're only echoes. Nothing more." But Elara knew now. Echoes don't bleed. And her voice didn't cry in those memories. It screamed. A shape emerged from the trees. Kale. Panting. Bleeding from a cut across his brow. "I followed you," he gasped. "I saw Mutya," she called them. "She led them here." Elara turned, heart slamming in her chest. Mutya did not flinch. "She doesn't understand," Kale said, drawing his blade. "She's not trying to help you. She's using you to open the gate." Mutya sighed, almost sadly. "You're not ready, Kale," she said softly. "And you were never meant to follow this far." Elara's breath hitched. "What does she mean?" Kale's grip tightened. "She tried to stop me from reaching you. She knew I'd tell you." And then Mutya said something Elara couldn't have expected, because he was supposed to die before this night. The wind roared. The forest went dark, even with the blood moon overhead. And Mutya's face, her mask, fell away. Her bones elongated. Her skin cracked like dry bark, peeling back to reveal something ancient beneath. Not fully aswang. But not human either. Something older. A bridge. "You're the gate," she said to Elara. "But I'm the key." Lightning shattered the sky. The broken circle around Elara began to pulse. She staggered backward. "You lied," she whispered. "You were supposed to protect me." "I protected the bloodline," Mutya said. "You mistake my loyalty. I was never here for you, I was here for what's inside you." The mutya flared in Elara's hand, nearly burning her skin. Kale grabbed her wrist. "Run." But they didn't run fast enough. The earth split. And from it came something else. Tall. Hooded in bone and flame. Wings made of woven skin. A higher being. Not a simple aswang. Not even a mortal thing. This was what the forest had feared. Not a beast. But a godling. An aswang lord, an entity ancient and starving, sealed beneath the soil for generations. And Elara had just cracked the gate. Mutya stepped into its shadow, bowing. "I have done what was asked." The being looked down at her. And then, with one swipe of a clawed hand, tore her in half. The forest screamed. Elara dropped to her knees. Kale pulled her behind a large stone, whispering a chant under his breath, something she recognized from his old village stories. "A ward. Temporary. We're outmatched," he breathed. This isn't just a curse. It's part of something bigger. Older." Elara gripped the mutya. "I think it's tied to my family. I think we were the ones who fed it. Kept it locked." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "And now I've let it out." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't do this. Mutya did. But we have to finish it. You're the gate, but maybe you're also the seal." The godling spoke. Its voice was a chorus, rumbling through the roots and bones of the earth. The gate has cracked. The offering has spilled. The path is open. And from the trees, the lesser aswangs emerged, dozens of them. Crawling. Slithering. Gliding like shadows given form. They didn't attack. They waited. The moon shone down like an eye. Watching. Judging. Elara stepped forward, her hand glowing with the mutya's light. The godling looked down at her. Will you open, or will you burn? Elara's voice trembled. Maybe I can do both. Suddenly, the mutya split. Not destroyed, but opened like a blooming flower. Inside, not a gem, but a small, pulsing heart. Still beating. Kale gasped. What is that? My mother said it was passed down. I thought it was a stone. It's not, Elara said. It's a piece of the seal. And now that it was open. The godling flinched. Its body twisted. It feared the light. She stepped forward again. Maybe I was the gate, she said. But I choose what comes through. The ground shook. The lesser aswangs hissed and pulled away, writhing like snakes in salt. The godling snarled. But it couldn't move forward. Not while the seal heart burned in her hand. Not while her will remained. But Elara stumbled. The power surged too fast, rushing through her like wildfire. She dropped to her knees again. Too much, she gasped. The godling took a step forward. And Kale, without thinking, grabbed the burning mutya from her hands. He screamed in pain. But held fast. The light exploded. The forest vanished in white. Time stretched. Then, silence. Elara opened her eyes. The godling was gone. Only ash remained where it had stood. The circle was whole again. But Kale, he lay in the center. Unmoving. The mutya beside him, now dark. Elara crawled to his side, her fingers shaking. Kale, no, 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 his eyes fluttered open. Still, here, he whispered. She laughed, shaky, tearful, overwhelmed. Don't do that again. Wasn't planning to. But even as they sat in silence, catching their breath, Elara knew, this wasn't over. The godling was banished. But the gate still existed. And somewhere out there, others like it waited. Her family's blood wasn't just cursed. It was woven into the veil itself. It rained again. Not the soft kind that tapped gently at leaves, but a steady downpour, cold and unrelenting. Elara stood at the forest's heart, barefoot in the wet earth, the mutya hanging dead and dark from a thin cord around her neck. Behind her, Kale leaned weakly against a twisted tree, his face pale, but alive. The seal held, for now. But the cost hadn't been paid in full. She could feel it in the ground, like something still clawed at the edges of the world. That night, she dreamed again. A familiar field. The scent of burnt Comangian. Her mother's voice. One day you'll be asked to choose, the voice said softly. Not between good and evil, but between what you love and what you must become. When Elara woke, the rain had stopped. But the forest was no quieter. At dawn, she felt the presence return. Not like before, no towering godling, no writhing mass. Just a single figure. Sitting in the clearing as if waiting for tea. A woman. Her back turned. Her hair long and wet, dripping as if the rain had chosen her alone. Elara, she said, without turning. You came. Elara stepped forward slowly. Mother? The woman stood. Turned. And Elara's breath caught. She looked like her mother, exactly. Same eyes, same hands, same half-smile. But where her mother's warmth had once lived, now there was something else. A void behind the gaze. A hunger. You're not her, Elara said quietly. No, the thing agreed. But I remember her. I wore her face when she made her choice, too. Elara reached for the mutya. It pulsed again, just once. The woman smiled. She sealed me here, she said. But not completely. She thought you would end it differently. Elara's hands trembled. You're the original curse. Not a curse, the woman corrected gently. A bargain. Your family chose me. I gave them protection, vision, power. But all things cost. And now, she stepped forward. It's your turn. Kale limped into the clearing behind her. Elara, don't listen to her. Whatever she offers, but the woman held up one finger. And Kale froze. Not paralyzed. Removed. Like he no longer existed. Elara screamed. The forest didn't echo. Only the sound of her breath and blood in her ears. Don't worry, the woman cooed. He's safe. For now. Then she gestured to the forest around them. All of this, the fear, the hunger, the aswangs, it wasn't chaos. It was order. The old order. And your family once ruled it with me. Elara shook her head. I don't want that. You already have it. She reached toward Elara's chest. You woke it when you opened the mutya. Pain flared. A memory not her own flooded her mind, a fire. Her mother weeping. A circle of salt broken. A whisper in her infant ear, one day, you'll finish what I couldn't. Elara fell to her knees. The woman crouched beside her. You can seal me again, Elara. Or you can join me. Become what your blood remembers. I'm not like you, Elara whispered. No, the woman said. You're stronger. And then. A third voice. Low. Familiar. Then break the cycle. Kale. He stood again, body shaking, eyes locked on hers. You don't have to choose her path. Or your family's. You can make a new one. The rain returned. Soft this time. Washing away the illusion. Elara looked around. The woman flickered, like candlelight in wind. Not a person. A memory with teeth. You're not my mother, Elara said. You're just what she feared becoming. And the mutya flared. Light poured from her hands. Not burning. Warming. Like the forest remembered its true shape. The woman screamed. A sound of breaking glass, of birds falling from the sky. Elara stepped forward. Each breath anchoring her. Each step saying no. No to legacy. No to fear. No to being a gate, or a weapon, or a price. She took the mutya and pressed it into her chest. The seal flared and turned inward. Not casting the spirit out, but pulling it in. Elara's body arched, light bursting from her eyes. The woman dissolved into mist, screaming. And Elara saw, in that last moment, her real mother. Smiling. Proud. Free. Then everything went still. The forest exhaled. Kale caught her as she fell. Elara, stay with me. She blinked up at him. I didn't destroy her. I became the seal. You are the gate, he said. But now you choose what passes. And then. The final twist, a rustle. Not from the trees. From within her. A voice in her head. Not dark. Not cruel. Just. Waiting. We are not gone. We are bound. But you are our vessel now. Elara closed her eyes. The battle was over. But the war had only changed shape. The storm had passed. A gentle light filtered through the canopy, turning each raindrop into a jewel clinging to moss and bark. The forest no longer whispered with secrets, it breathed. Quiet. Still. Awake. Elara sat beneath a tree with roots like arms, the mutya warm against her chest, no longer glowing but alive. She was changed. Not in the way stories say heroes glow or rise above, but in the aching, quiet way people change when they've carried too much and finally set something down. Kale stirred beside her, his head resting against a damp bundle of leaves. "You're still here," he said sleepily, voice raw. She smiled, faint and real. "So are you." They didn't speak for a while after that. Words didn't feel necessary in this new stillness. Birdsong returned slowly. The wind, once wild and violent, now just rustled the leaves like a child brushing a page. They walked back to the edge of the forest in silence. The same path they once feared, now worn and familiar. Along the way, Elara noticed how the forest had changed. Trees stood straighter, roots no longer coiled like claws. Strange glowing fungi had dimmed. The air smelled of damp earth, not blood. It was as if the curse had exhaled too. Still there, but sleeping, deep within her. Back in the village, things weren't the same. They never could be. Word had already spread about the creatures that had come too close, about the night someone saw fire in the trees, a howl that cracked the wind. No one knew it was Elara. No one except the old albulario, who met her eyes from a distance and gave a slow, knowing nod. And perhaps the trees, who now bent slightly toward her as she passed. She returned to her small house by the river's bend, where the roof still leaked and the floor still creaked. But the silence no longer pressed on her like a weight. It cradled her now. One morning, weeks later, she opened her mother's old chest. Inside were letters, ones she had never read, wrapped in dried leaves and thin string. She lit a candle. And began to understand. "I was never meant to live past the curse," one letter said. "But I hoped you would. I hoped love could protect you longer than fear could cage me." Elara read each one aloud. Not just with her voice, but with her breath, her grief, her forgiveness. Kale listened quietly across the room, his presence an anchor. He never asked what the voice in her dreams said now. She never told him. Some things are not burdens to be shared, but truths to be carried gently. In time, the village came to her for small things, herbs for fever, a blessing for a child, help deciphering dreams. They didn't know what she had become. They only knew that when she laid her hand on the earth, the rain came softer. Crops grew stronger. Spirits quieted. They called her Binnakat, the Veiled One. She smiled at the irony. But in the quiet of each night, when the forest sighed and the wind hummed against her windows, she still felt it. The presence. The memory. Not evil. Not good. Just there. Inside her. A sealed God. A mother's mistake. A daughter's choice. Sometimes it whispered. Soft, like leaves against skin. "You could have ruled." And she would whisper back, tracing the mutya gently, "I chose to protect." Kale stayed. He tended to the garden, read aloud in the evenings, built a new roof that didn't leak. He never asked to leave. And she never asked why he stayed. Some love doesn't need to be spoken aloud to be felt. One morning, the mist returned. Just like the first night. Thick. Heavy. Humming. But this time, Elara wasn't afraid. She stepped outside barefoot, standing beneath the dripping eaves, and let the mist wrap around her like a shawl. Eyes closed. Arms open. The forest breathed her name. Not with hunger. But reverence. She smiled. And the mist parted. She knew the danger wasn't truly gone. The old ways slept. But now, she was their dreamkeeper. And if they ever woke again, she would be ready. That night, she walked to the forest's edge alone. No fear. No mutya glowing in warning. Just her. Elara of the Riverbend. Daughter of the Veiled Line. Not a weapon. Not a curse. A guardian. She knelt beneath the trees, touched her forehead to the earth, and whispered, "You took so much from me. But you gave me myself." And when she stood, she was no longer alone. The wind stirred around her, 1,000 voices in the leaves. Not demanding. Not haunting. Just watching. The forest remembered. And now, so would she. Final line. In the hush of the rain and the hush of her heart, Elara walked forward, no longer running from the darkness, but lighting a path through it.